There is a building in Las Vegas with no clocks and no windows. That's not a coincidence. It is architecture. The absence of a clock is a design decision, the same way the carpet pattern is a design decision, the same way the distance between the entrance and the first machine is a design decision. Every element of a casino exists to produce one specific thing: a brain that cannot locate the edge of now, a person who can no longer accurately measure what staying is costing them. You probably came here to understand a person, someone whose warmth arrives without warning and disappears without explanation, someone who makes you feel like the only thing in the room, and then someone who makes you feel like furniture. You've been trying to work out the math, why you stay, why you go back, why the good moments land with a weight that doesn't match how often they come. The math is real, and it's going to explain something about them. But before this is over, it's going to explain something about you. Stay with that, we'll get there. In 2004, a researcher named Mark Dixon put into clinical language something casino designers had known for decades but never bothered to formalize. He was studying what the industry calls the near-miss effect. A near miss is when a slot machine produces two matching symbols and stops one position short of the third, technically a loss. Objectively identical to any other loss, the player received nothing. The odds on the next pull are exactly what they were before. And yet, the near miss produces more persistent play than a clean loss. In some studies, more persistent than a win. The brain responds to almost with activation patterns that resemble reward, not loss. The gap between what happened and what nearly happened reads to the nervous system as information about the future, as signal that the next pull is different. It isn't. But the nervous system is not a logic machine. It's a prediction machine. And what it learned inside variable reward is that the pellet is always almost here, that the miss means something, that you're close. Wolfram Schultz, a neuroscientist, spent years mapping where dopamine fires in primate brains. The finding was precise enough to be uncomfortable. The dopamine signal, the one the brain reads as pay attention, this matters, stay, doesn't fire when the reward arrives, it fires in the moment before. In the gap of not yet knowing, the anticipation is the hit. The maybe is the neurochemical event. Run that through the last 6 months with this person. The good moment doesn't arrive on a Tuesday like other things arrive on Tuesday. It arrives after days of not knowing, after enough silence that you stopped expecting it. When it finally comes, it lands in a brain already saturated with anticipation. It doesn't feel like a normal good moment. It feels like evidence, like finally, like proof of something you've been trying to hold on to. That's the architecture. A slot machine doesn't keep people playing because it's generous. It keeps them playing because it found the frequency the human brain cannot walk away from, and someone in your life has been broadcasting on it. Here is where this needs to slow down. There are two very different explanations for why someone broadcasts on that frequency, and the one you've been using may not be the accurate one. The first, they know what they're doing. The person with a dark triad configuration, narcissistic, Machiavellian, psychopathic traits running in some combination, can deploy inconsistency as leverage, warmth extended carefully at intervals to maintain the attachment without paying the full cost of a relationship. The withdrawal is the tool, the return is the reward. This cycle repeats with enough precision that leaving feels, each time, like abandoning something that was almost working. That explanation exists. Those people exist. But here's the thing about intermittent reinforcement. The brain does not care why the pattern is there. Patrick Carnes, who spent decades studying trauma bonding, found that the neurochemical cycle, the cortisol of rupture, the oxytocin of repair, the dopamine of almost produces the same depth of attachment, whether the pattern was constructed deliberately or whether it emerged from someone who is simply afraid of being too close. A controlled person and a terrified person can generate the same frequency. From inside the bond, you cannot tell them apart by feel. The near miss feels the same regardless of who designed the machine. If you've been asking whether they're doing it on purpose, whether they're aware, you may have been asking the wrong question, because the answer changes what you think of them. It does not change what's happening in you. I want to ask you something. Hold it before you answer. Is there someone in your life, someone who seems to want you more than you can quite meet, who you treat the way you've been describing being treated? Not someone you're cruel to? Someone who is consistent with you and whom you find yourself needing to pull back from. Someone whose availability feels like pressure. Someone you're warmer toward when they've gone a little quiet. John Bowlby described attachment styles as systems calibrated on early experience, not beliefs, not decisions, something older than both. If what the system learned was inconsistency, warmth that arrived unpredictably, closeness that came with a clause, then the system doesn't only seek out that pattern, it reproduces it, not as strategy as language, the only dialect of closeness it knows how to speak. The person who grew up inside unpredictable warmth doesn't just become bonded to unpredictable people, they become, without noticing, unpredictable themselves to someone, and that someone is running the same calculation you are. Parsing your silences, waiting for the warmth to return, feeling most certain of you in the moments you almost leave. There's a near-miss effect happening to them, and you didn't design it. This is the turn that was always coming. Most people who consume content about intermittent reinforcement come looking for an explanation of someone else, and they find one. The dopamine curve, the near-miss, the variable schedule. The framework is real, and it maps onto what they're inside of. What they don't tend to do is look in the other direction. You are someone who knows what it's like to be on the wrong side of inconsistency, which means you learned the frequency early. You felt it before you had language for it, and a nervous system that learns something that early doesn't file it under lessons. It files it under how things work, under what love feels like in the body. So you carry the frequency into every room, into every relationship. And some of the people who've tried to be close to you have felt it, the slight withdrawal when they get too consistent, the warmth that appears when they pull back, the sense that they can never quite land the timing right. They are in a casino, and the house is you, and you didn't know there were any machines in the building. That is not an accusation. It is a mirror. Two mirrors facing each other, each reflecting someone who was wired by something they didn't consent to, inside a pattern they didn't choose, producing in another person the exact experience that formed them. Here's the question this was always going to end on. Not whether they're conscious of the pattern, not whether to stay or go, the one underneath both of those. If you trace the frequency back, past this relationship, past the one before, further back than that, where does it start? Not with them, somewhere earlier. A room where warmth was not a given, a closeness that came with a clause no one spelled out for you. And now you're inside another version of that room, except this time you are both inside it. You on one side of the pattern, them on the other, and behind both of you is the original room that taught you this was the shape of love. You didn't fall into this person by accident. You recognized a frequency. They recognized one too. The question worth sitting with tonight, not answering, just holding, is whether what you're calling a relationship is two people choosing each other, or two nervous systems finding the same station and calling that home. Because if it's the second one, the problem isn't the relationship. The problem is what you were both taught to call belonging. Then decide which one of you came here to understand the casino, and which one already knew how to run one.